Hey everyone, Professor Leis here. In this video, I'm going to show you how to access the library's online databases. So I'm using my English 103 course for this example, so if you're in my English 100 course, don't worry, it's all the same. So I'm on the Canvas homepage, and then to the left I have my local navigation bar, and I'm going to go to Cypress College Library Resources. Yeah, I'm not really sure why they hyphenated that word in the middle like that, but we're going to click on that. And then it will take you to some of the key resources that the library has available for us. So something that I want to point out, we have a list of our friendly librarians here, so you can kind of see some of the different librarians that work at the library, all of them very knowledgeable and friendly. And then you can also schedule an appointment to meet with a librarian, and if you don't really have a preference who it is, you just click here. It says no preference, but if you maybe have worked with a librarian in the past and you see their name there and you want to try to work with that person specifically, you can go ahead and do so. But I definitely recommend taking advantage of that resource. So let's go ahead and take a look at the databases. So I have here this tab. It says A through Z database list. So let's go ahead and click on that. Popular databases, that's all the list I need, because I'm going to show you some of the more popular ones, and the reason they're popular is because they're very useful. So one of the databases that I'll show you is EBSCOhost. I'll show you Gale eBooks, and I'll show you Opposing Viewpoints, or Gale in Context. So let's actually start there, Opposing Viewpoints, Gale in Context. So if you're not familiar with this database, it's a really great way to get started because, as the title suggests, Opposing Viewpoints, they aggregate a bunch of different perspectives on a whole range of different issues. And so they'll provide you with different ideas, different opinions, counter arguments, all of these different things that can help you get a fuller, richer understanding of a given topic. So just as with any database, if you know exactly what you're going to try to search for, you can type it into the search field. But I'm going to recommend that instead of doing that, you click on this button that says Browse Issues. There's the light bulb there. You can all see my cursor. So click on Browse Issues. And what we have is a list of all of the different issues that they have sources for. And you can see there are 3 columns here, and each column has got to have over 100, maybe over 200 topics or issues, right? So if you're not really sure what you want to focus on in your research, this is a great starting point because you can just cruise around and see like, oh, drones, that seems interesting, or drunk driving, I'm against that, let me check that, what that's about. Nuclear weapons, video games, there's all kinds of different things. You can also see that they're alphabetically arranged, so that's very helpful. I'm just going to click on one for the sake of example, online retail. So when you click on any given issue, it'll take you to, first, the first thing will be an overview of that. And one thing I want to make very clear is that this overview is not meant to be a source. Okay, do not use the overview article as a source. It's just meant to provide you with context for the issue. Now you can click the Read More button here, and it will give you a kind of a fuller overview. So you can read through just to see what the issue is about, but do not use this as a source. Okay, so then what can you use as a source? If you go back to the main page for whatever issue it is that you selected, if you scroll down, you'll see that they've aggregated a bunch of different types of sources. So here, featured viewpoints, these are some of the kind of different perspectives involved. We have academic journals, so all of these are going to be sources that come from academic journals, and so academic journals are generally regarded as very credible. We have reference reference sources here. There's some images that could be useful, infographics, videos, audio. So these might be snippets from radio programs and whatnot, magazines, news. So these are newspaper articles. And you see in the parentheses, there are numbers. So in this case, that means there are 2,400 different news articles on this given topic of online retail. And here, featured viewpoints, they have 9. Academic journals, there are 22 sources. Viewpoints, 8. So let's just click on one just for the sake of example. So once you've found a source that you think might be useful, go ahead and just give it a skim or skim part of it just to see if it is indeed what you thought it was. You wouldn't want to devote a bunch of time reading something that isn't going to be useful for you. But on the other side of that, you want to make sure that you are indeed reading these sources and trying to analyze them and understand them if you plan to use them in your essay. So there are different features here where you can collect the source, and which I'm going to recommend that you do that. Don't just think that you'll remember it and you can come back to it later, because I'm sure we've all had the experience where we thought that and then we can't find the source when we come back to it. So you could email it to yourself, or you can upload it to OneDrive or Google Drive, or you could print it out. So they have these different icons here. So this is the Google Drive icon, so you click that and it'll have you sign into your Google or OneDrive or email. This is what I'm going to recommend that you do. So if you click that, in the To section, you're going to put your own email address. And then you don't need to worry about that. Subject line, it's going to include the title of that source. And then in a message, you can go ahead and give a brief description of it. And I'm going to recommend that you send the full text so that you have access to that. So you click send, and it will go ahead and email it to yourself. And that's a great way to collect those different sources. Something else that's very useful here is, see up here we have this cite button. So you can click that, click that, and you can generate the citation for this. Now, we're using MLA 8th edition. That's the format we're using, and they've cited it according to that. So you could go ahead and copy and paste this into your document, say your annotated bibliography document or the works cited list for your essay. Here's the thing though, you're going to need to verify that it's correct, because 9 times out of 10 there's something that's a little off. Okay, so that's really important. So what I'm going to recommend that you do is verify that either through the course textbook or looking at Purdue's online writing lab to make sure. One thing that I can tell right here is they didn't cite or capitalize the title as it should have been. That's something that you want to do. So, okay, well, let's go ahead and take a look at another database. Let's go ahead and go to Gale eBooks. This one is a little bit more of a kind of an encyclopedic type of database. They give you reference works, things to give you some background knowledge about some things. So once you have a source in mind, this is where you might want to go after that, just to see what's available to you or for you for that source. So you can go ahead and click that in. I'm just going to use that online retail, since that was the example I used. Let's see what they have here. Okay, so they have some different reference works that seem to be focused on that topic. So you can go ahead and cruise around there and see what you can find. Generally though, what's going to be a better database, once you have a topic in mind and you've found some of the search terms that you can use to find sources on that, you'll want to go to EBSCOhost. So once you're here at EBSCOhost, you'll come to this page. EBSCOhost, just as a little bit of context, is as the title suggests, a host for lots of different databases. So it's kind of an umbrella database where a bunch of little databases are situated. And so here they have highlighted two databases that they're going to search for or search in. So these are generally pretty good, so you could just leave those two. Or if you wanted to get more specific, you can cruise down and see some of the other databases that you could also search in. So for example, this one is called ERIC. The acronym stands for Education Resource Information Center. So if you're researching a topic that deals with education, might be a good one to click, right? Just because you want to make sure that you're getting in as many sources as you can on your topic. Green File, this one focuses on environmental issues. Medline, as you can guess, focuses on medical topics, that sort of thing. So you can look and see there's different ones available to you. I'm going to go ahead and just, I'll leave the first two up there, and then I'll just leave Eric selected for fun and click continue. So here is the interface for EBSCO. Now you'll notice that there are three search fields, and I'll demonstrate that in a second. So you want to scroll down and make sure that full text is selected. That's something that's very important. You don't want to get just the first couple pages of a source. You want to make sure you can read the entire source. So click full text. If you're trying to find scholarly or peer-reviewed sources, that's a good one to click. But I'm going to leave my net a little bit wider than that. The other thing that you'll want to make sure that you put is the date. Now, generally speaking, your sources, you want them as recent as possible, but within the last 5 years or so is generally a pretty good date range. However, if it's something that's very, very specifically current, like the topic I'm going to model above, you want to make sure that it's as relevant and recent as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and click 2019 and then 2020 for the range. So that means it's going to be either within 2020 or within 2019. Because I'm interested, it's already here, online education. That's the topic I'm going to look up. Now you notice it's in quotation marks, and the reason for that, if I didn't have those quotation marks, what it's going to do is treat these as two separate words. So it'll go find any source that has the word education in it, and it'll go find any source that has online in it, but not necessarily online education. Now, those two words together are a very specific topic, so I want to make sure that it's finding sources that treat those as two words together as a concept. So online education. Let's go ahead and click search, see what we can find. Okay, so my search yielded 3,743 sources. That's a lot of sources. So I want to see if I can get it a little bit more specific, but before I do that, I'm just going to look, kind of cruise around and see some of the different sources that have come up. Now, ones that I recommend you try to look for are the ones that offer the full PDF text. Because that will show you the text exactly how it appears in its original source. Many of the sources in an online database actually were in print initially, like a magazine or a journal. So if it has pictures and specific page numbers, if it's the PDF, that it'll preserve that as they appear in the original. If it's the HTML full text, it won't preserve those page numbers, and it may not include images and that sort of thing. So let me just demonstrate this for you. So click that. And here we go. So this has some of the same functionality, or much of the same functionality as the other database I showed you, Opposing Viewpoints. You'll notice on the right-hand side we have the Google Drive icon, so you can send it to your Google Drive. You can print it if you like to print articles out and annotate them. That's something that I like to do. It helps me get more in depth with a source. You can email it to yourself. So again, if this is something that you think you're going to want to use in your essay, go ahead and click that and follow the same thing. Email to, you'd put your email address, subject. This one doesn't automatically put the title, but you can go ahead and put the title in there, or maybe some sort of phrase that will help you understand what it is. Now let's go back to see how we can get it more specific, because 3,700 sources, that's a lot to sift through. So one thing that you want to do, we have these other search fields. Think about other ways of referring to the topic. So online education is one way to refer to this, but it's also called distance learning. Again, I want to make sure I put my quotation marks if it's 2 words or more than 2 words. So let's search and see if it's more specific. Oh yeah, so it cut several thousand sources out, so only 327 now. So do the same thing. Look around, see if there are things that stand out to you as potentially useful. I suggest trying to find the full texts just to make sure that you have the full thing there, or the PDFs rather. Now something that is really, what I'm really interested in, and you may have seen that in the drop down from my search history, I'm really interested in online education as it relates to COVID-19, because that's very, very specific and relevant right now. So let's see what I can do there. So it yielded approximately the same amount of sources, but now all of these are going to also reference COVID-19. So the other sources in the previous search, online education, that could be well before COVID-19, right? But online education in these current times, very specific set of demands and whatnot. So cruise around and see what sort of sources seem interesting. I'm just clicking on this just to demonstrate. So because it's the PDF, I can see, it has the original page numbers from the original source. So I might say, oh, this is an interesting source. I plan to use it. So you can email it to yourself. If you so chose. Oops. And that about does it. So these are the ways to use the online databases. It's really important that you're getting the bulk of your sources for your essay from these online databases, whether it's from EBSCOhost, which, as you see, yields a lot of different sources, and you have a little bit more free reign. So I don't recommend starting with EBSCOhost. I recommend starting with Gale in Context, Opposing Viewpoints. Searching the list of the general topics, seeing what's available, what's out there. Because if you're not sure, then there's no point in just going to EBSCO, because you don't know what to look for. So, all right, everyone, if you have any questions, just let me know. Send me a message on Canvas. Happy researching. I'm looking forward to reading your essays.